Okay, so we'll start Lama with focus area number 4. Now, once we do this, the class is done. So this area is one of the most important parts of unit number 1, that is on the production possibility curve, the PPC. Yes, Indura did econ, IT, and accounting. That was his 3 subjects. Okay. Okay, so then coming into this Lama, PPC, production possibility curves, that you have theory-based questions from this. You have the PPC diagram-based questions itself that you might have. Now, this is again, Amay, a little bit of an area that now I have to summarize this in 1.5 hours. Now, if you don't have a theory backing, it might be a little difficult. But as much as possible, I will try to go as slow as possible to take the entire 1.5 hours to cover this up. But for those who are completely blank, Lama, it can be a little difficult. But if you're completely blank, if you have no way of covering it up, you can always get my theory class recordings and tutes, and you can cover things up, or even school or whatever way you're covering up the theory, you can get it done. Okay. So with that being said, Lamai, we'll get started. Now, this part again is not connected to the previous parts much also. So even if it's not connected to this market economy, command economy, even if you don't know those, that is all right. Okay. So we'll start, Lamai. What is this PPC? What are the determinants and what are the assumptions of a PPC? So what is a PPC, Lamai? A production possibility curve, we can call it a PPC, a PP, production possibility boundary, production possibility frontier, right? Different names you give it to it. What is it? It's a line that is drawn, Lamai, to show the different combinations of two goods a country can produce. So a PPC is a what? It's a line. Right? So this line could be a straight line and all of it. We'll talk about the shape of the line later. So it's a line, right, showing, Lamai, let's say this is capital goods. These are consumer goods. A line showing the combination of different goods that a country can produce if they use all their resources in a maximum sustainable level. In other words, Lamai, it shows the potential output. So for example, let's say this country can produce 100 units of capital goods, 100 units of consumer goods. That is one combination. So then you can have different combinations. Now, this could be another combination, the red one. Let's say this is 90 units of capital goods, 120 units of consumer goods. So you can have so many combinations. So this line, what does it show, Lamai? This line, that is what you call the PPC. It shows the different combinations of two goods a country can produce if they use all their resources fully. That's what a PPC is. But it's, Lamai, these are economic models. Now, if you take in the real world, a country doesn't only produce two goods. No, a country produces, Lamai, thousands and thousands of goods. So when you're making this entire economic model of a PPC, we are thinking, okay, there is a country. This country is producing two goods. They have certain amount of resources. Based on that, how much of these they can produce? How much of this? How much of this? If not, how much of this and this? That's what you're looking at. So here, if you look at the assumptions itself, we look at the fact that the country only produces two goods. Yes, hypothetical economic, right? The stock of resources remain constant. The amount of resources won't change. Then technology is constant, and we also assume, Lamai, there is full utilization of the resources. Now, in the real world, that will also not happen. Now, if you take Sri Lanka, does Sri Lanka use all of our resources? No, Lamai, there are so many people without jobs, unemployed. There are so much of machines that are not being used, unemployed capital. So we will assume if an economy uses all of its resources sustainably, how much it can produce. That is what the PPC will show, Lamai. So then coming into the most important part is the determinants of a PPC. Now, if I ask you, if you take the PPCs of, Lamai, let's say 2 countries, let's say I would have taken in my theory class, let's say Sri Lanka and Japan. So if you take, Lamai, the PPC of Sri Lanka and Japan, let's take the same two goods, consumer goods and capital goods. Consumer goods, capital goods. This is Sri Lanka's PPC. It's a maximum 100, here also 100. If you take, Lamai, Japan, their PPC is much bigger than us. They can, let's say, produce 500 consumer goods, or they can produce, Lamai, 500 capital goods. Now, this is what I'm asking you is, Why is Japan's PPC bigger than our PPC? Why can Japan produce more goods than us, Lamai? How is Japan's production combinations much bigger than us? Why? How did it happen? What are the determinants of a PPC? That is what I'm asking you. How did Japan's PPC, how did it become so big? So what are the determinants, Lama? That is what we are going to learn. The determinants of a PPC. That's there in the previous slide also. So what are the main determinants, Lama? One main determinant is the factor endowment, how much of resources you have. So maybe why Japan's PPC is bigger is maybe because Lama, Japan has more land than us. Maybe they have more labor than us. Maybe Lama, they have a lot of machines, more capital than us. Maybe they have Lamai more entrepreneurship than us, right? More entrepreneurs than Sri Lanka. That is why their PPC is bigger. They have more factors. Factor endowment means Lamai, how much of factors you have. So if a country has a lot of factors, a lot of land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, their PPC will be much bigger. But is it only the amount of factors, Lamai? Is there another factor that determines the size of your PPC? Definitely the factor endowment. That's the amount of factors you have. What's the other one? The other one is, Lamai, how productive are your factors? Your factor productivity, or factors are factors and resource, same thing. Huh? So your factor productivity. Now, for example, Lamai, now let's take something like labor. Maybe let's say Sri Lanka and Japan, let's say we'll assume we both have the same labor. But in Japan, the people are much more educated, much more highly skilled. So what does factor productivity depend on, Lamai? Factor productivity depends on a few things. One is technology. It depends on Lamai human capital, the skills and knowledge of your workforce. It depends on Lamai your management methods, right? How you motivate your employees and all of it. It depends on things like Lamai division of labor and specialization. So all of that affects Lamai your factor productivity. Does Japan really have more land than Sri Lanka? I think they do. Okay. So those are the determinants, Lamai. So when this one is your how much of factors you have, your factor endowment. And second is how productive are those factors? How is your technology? How is your people's knowledge and all, human capital? How are your management methods? Are your people getting motivated and all of it? And are you practicing things like division of labor and specialization? Those are the determinants. So if you simply try to analyze, why do you think Japan's PPC is much bigger than Sri Lanka's? It could be any of this. Maybe Japan has more labor. Maybe Japan has better technology. Maybe Japan has better human capital. It could be a combination of it. It could be multiple things, or it could be one thing. So these are the determinants of a PPC. These are the two main things that determine the size of a country's PPC. Japan has a bigger PPC, maybe because they have more resources, their productivity is high. Sri Lanka has a smaller PPC, maybe our resources are not that much, our productivity is low. Okay, that's the determinants. Now, why are these determinants very important, is Lamai, when you get practical questions in your exam? Remember, that's what I'm making a note here. Now, some of y'all come and ask me, Lamai, you all know PPC, you all ask me, sir, how do I figure out, sir, is it a point movement or is it the curve shifting? So should I shift the PPC, sir, or should I, move a point here and there? Always remember, Lamai, if any of these determinants change, your factor endowment, or if your factor productivity changes, then Lamai, your PPC will shift. For any other reason, the PPC won't shift. Now, in your paper, they won't give you direct questions. Now, I'll give you an example. In your paper, Lamai, they will say, okay, there has been, let's say, due to the economic crisis, many Sri Lankans have migrated abroad. Due to the crisis, many Sri Lankans have migrated abroad. Show this on a PPC. Now, I want you to think, how do you connect this with one of these factors, Lamai? Can you all try to connect and tell me the factor endowment, factor productivity, these sub-factors also, which one here is changing? If they say Sri Lanka, many Sri Lankans have migrated abroad after the economic crisis, what are they talking about? They're talking about labor, no? the amount of labor, right, that you have. Let's say earlier you had 5 million people. Now let's say 1 million have gone abroad. The amount of your labor has come down. Anna, you will shift your PPC inside. Labor has reduced. Anna, this thing is, you can call it brain drain. We have lost your skills anyway. It's a inward shift. See, that is how they give you questions, Lamai. In your exam paper, they will not say a labor has come down, show this in a PPC, a capital has increased, show this on PPC. No. Now I'll give you another example. Maybe, for example, sometimes they will say, okay, let's say they will say, the government, right? The government of Sri Lanka has introduced a new vocational training program for students after A levels. So after A levels, now you have to do a separate vocational training, like, these skills about carpentry skills, this skill, that skill, a compulsory program like that is there. Or maybe let's say after O levels, until you get your O level results, you have to do something like that. Government comes up with a program. How can that affect your PPC? What's happening there, Lama? Connect with, see if any of these factors are changing. Anna, human capital, the knowledge, the skills of your workforce are improving. Anna, human capital. So then PPC will shift to the right. So that's where, Lama, you have to logically think, right? Now, okay, I'll give you another example. Now, for example, something like increase in unemployment. Now, let's say earlier there are people who have jobs. Now, these people have lost jobs. Is any of the factors changing? Increase in unemployment. Does increase in unemployment mean, does that mean your labor is decreasing? Let's say in Sri Lanka, there are 8 million people in the labor force. Does that mean your labor has decreased? No. Has your labor changed? There are still 8 million people. It's just that some of these people don't have jobs. The labor is still there. So has the labor changed? No. So then, Lama, that will not shift your PPC. It will be a point movement. I'll show you all those. So that's where you have to logically think, right? When certain things, now for example, okay, they can give you, okay, Sri Lanka discovered a new oil deposit in Manna. Try to connect into something. A new oil deposit in Manna. How will that be shown in the PPC? Oil deposit, natural resource. We have found one, has gone up. What is that? Land has increased. And shift the PPC outward then. Right? If these factors might increase, then your PPC will be bigger, outward shift. If any of these decrease, then it's an inward shift. So always think in that angle. There is no Lama. Now some of you all try to memorize situations. There can be so much. Now, okay, definitely improve technology, definitely is a shift now. Because technology is a determinant of factor productivity. Let's say we get the latest technology, or our technology advances, and technology improves, shift outward. So look at these 8 factors, Lama. These are the only 8, right? Look at these 8. Look at the factor endowment, the 4, factor productivity, the 4. If any of these change, only then what happens? PPC will shift. Division of labor, then that they will directly keep. So they can say factories in Sri Lanka have now started to practice division of labor. So then another thing. So management methods may be an example I can give this. Now the the managers in Sri Lankan firms are, using different techniques to motivate their employees, right? Or maybe they have introduced a, let's say, a bonus system for them. Right now, employees, they are getting a bonus. Right? And they are more productive now. Now they will work faster. And you can now produce more PPC will shift. So different things can come, Lamai. So that with practice and all, when you all are doing now, you all will do the papers. When you're doing papers, Lamai, and think. And then you should be able to figure this out. Well, the PPC shifts in no. So that's the basic intro, Lamai, of a PPC. So a PPC is a line showing the different combinations of the two goods that a country can produce. Then what determines the PPC? One is how much of factors you have. Your factors and resources, same thing, Lamai. Factor endowment, or you can call it resource endowment. And second one is your factor productivity. If these change, the PPC will shift. Otherwise, PPC won't shift. Have that in mind. Right. Then, Lamai, we'll get into the shape of this PPC. Now, you all would have seen, Lamai, certain PPCs, Lamai, are a straight line, like this. Certain PPCs lamai are concave like this. Certain PPCs lamai are convex like this. That we don't really talk about too much. What does the shape of the PPC depend on, lamai? Shape of the PPC is based on what? It's based on the opportunity cost involved there, right? So if you have lamai, if you have something called constant opportunity cost, I will go into detail. If you have lamai constant opportunity cost, then you will have straight line PPC. If you have increasing opportunity cost lamai, you will have a concave PPC. And if you have lamai, this one is not practical, so we don't discuss much in our syllabus. Decreasing opportunity cost, you will have a convex PPC. So what are the reasons for constant opportunity cost? That is where you have homogeneous resource. All of that will go into detail. So we'll start about what this constant and all of this is. So we'll start now. Starting with constant opportunity cost. Okay, it's an easy one. Don't complicate it. What is opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is now decreasing. They don't really test too much. The word might be there here and there, but not test a lot. Okay. So what is opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is lamai. We said next best alternative, right? But opportunity cost is what you give up to get something. Opportunity cost is what you give up to get something, right? That is the basic story there. What you give up to get something. Okay. Now, can you all tell me lamai? I'll just ask you all. Let's say now I want all of you all to give me an answer on the chat box. Like chat box is private, so no one will know you. You give me your answer, what you feel. Right. So let's say lamai, right now, the economy is producing at point A. They are producing 900 units of good R and 250 units of good T. That is what they produce. Let's say lamai, if they move from A to B, can you tell me what is their opportunity cost? Now at point B, lamai, they are producing 500 of good T, 650 of good R. Opportunity cost is lamai, what you're sacrificing. What are you sacrificing? First, good R or good T? First, figure that out. Are you sacrificing R or T? What good is reducing? You're reducing R. How much of R? How much of R? When you go from point A to B, you have to sacrifice lamai 250 units of good R. And that is what we call lamai your opportunity cost. Now, here we are saying lamai opportunity cost is constant. That means when I go from, let's say, B to C also, the opportunity cost has to be the same. Can you all see? Is it the same? When I go from point B to point C, is my opportunity cost again 250 R? It is, no? And that is what you call my constant opportunity cost. Okay. How's it become 250? 900 minus 650. 650 minus 400. That's how the 250 comes. What you're giving up. Which good are you reducing the production of? So that's what you call my constant opportunity cost. Whenever you keep on increasing the production of one good, the amount of the other good you sacrifice remains constant. Here, every time you're sacrificing 250, 250. Now look at this. I'll come to the slide again. Look at this, lamai. Look at this example. This is increasing opportunity cost. Can you all tell me, when going from point A to B, what is my opportunity cost? At point A, I am producing 8 mobile phones, 10 cameras. Now at point B, I'm producing 7 mobile phones, 20 cameras. So to increase cameras by 10, what did I have to sacrifice? That's what you call my opportunity cost. I had to sacrifice 1 mobile phone, 1 unit of mobile phone. That is my opportunity cost. Now, when going from lamai B to C, is it still 1? I'm again increasing cameras by equal amount, still increasing it by 10. But now how much is my opportunity cost? Now 7 mobile phones became 3. Now I have to sacrifice 4 mobile phones. Can you all see lamai? My opportunity cost increased. Earlier, first, when going from A to B, I sacrificed only 1 phone. B to C, I sacrificed 4 phones. Opportunity cost increased, lamai. That's what you call increasing opportunity cost. But in the previous example here, the opportunity cost was constant. Now also understand this, Lamai. Some of you all confused. Some of you all confused, Lamai. Constant opportunity cost with zero opportunity cost. Constant opportunity cost doesn't mean opportunity cost is zero. Huh? Don't get that confused. Constant opportunity cost means there is an opportunity cost. It's just that when you keep on increasing more and more of one good by an equal amount, the amount of the other good you sacrifice remains constant. Not that it remains zero. Here, 250, 250, 250. It's the same amount. But here, the amount that you sacrifice keeps increasing. That's what you call increasing opportunity cost. Be very careful with those. Okay. So then in this, I'm not going into too much into detail, but if they ask you, Lamai, to calculate something called this marginal opportunity cost. Now, what is marginal opportunity cost? Marginal opportunity cost is, Lamai, the opportunity cost of producing one extra unit. Okay. So here in this example, it's very easy. If they ask you, what is the marginal opportunity cost of moving from point A to point B? Yes, one more thing I just want to check with you all. Can you all quickly take your revision paper number 4? Can you turn to the last page? I made a bit of a complex question on PPC. Was it printed properly? In my personal copy, it has not got printed properly. I have a feeling that everyone's paper, that last one has got messed up. No. That last question, see the diagram is a bit off. No. Revision paper 4. Inside your file, Tagala. Listen, it's all over the place, right? Can you just scroll and see, skim the paper through and see, is there anything else that has not got printed properly? Anything else? Any other diagram? These diagrams sometimes, I don't know why. In this one, it shows okay. When it gets printed, it gets a little messed up sometimes. Some of those. So what I'll do is, for that question, Lamai, I will send the screenshot of that, right? Of that diagram, right? No free marks. So maybe by tomorrow, a screenshot of that, Lamai, I will send it on the group. So when you are doing that paper, instead of looking at the one in the paper because the paper is not printed properly, look at this thing. Right? I think the PPC itself is not printed properly. So I'll send a screenshot of the correct PPC. Just have that in mind now, because sometimes otherwise I'll get 100 messages saying that it's not printed. That's what I just told you. So that next week, Tuesday, you have to submit. I'll send a screenshot. Okay. So then, for those who maybe from the screenshot, if you can correct the diagram, try to correct it. But I think it'll be a little hard to correct that. I think it's all was a lot messed up, I saw. So, but look at the diagram there and write the answers. Okay. So then, okay, back to this. Constant opportunity cost, how do you calculate constant or increasing? How do you calculate marginal opportunity cost? The equation is Lamai, foregone number of units divided by your gained number of units. So can you all tell me, when I'm going Lamai, can we send the answers in the group if you've done the paper? Can, Lamai, you can, but ideally maybe even take some time to do the past papers first and then do that paper. You might be able to score more because sometimes past paper questions also I put in that way. So first do the past papers, learn the whole thing, make the short note, learn the whole thing. Once you're done with that, do the revision paper. Revision paper can be the last thing that you do after all of this. Then you can score more. After doing all of it, you do that. Okay. So can you all tell me, when going from A to B, Lamai, what am I sacrificing? My good R 900 is becoming 650. So I'm sacrificing 250 units of this. Give me a second. Right. So we are sacrificing 250 units of good R. And what are we gaining, Lamai? In this, it doesn't have to be the same number now. In this example, it's the same number. We are gaining another 250 of T. So then how much is my opportunity cost? My marginal opportunity cost is one what though? Is it one coconut? Opportunity cost, always remember, it's what you sacrifice. So what are you sacrificing here when going from A to B? Is it good R or good T? What are you giving up? Good R. So it's 1 R lamai. That is, or you can say 1 unit of R, 1 unit of good R. You can say that. You don't have to give a minus there. That's all right. And even if you give a minus or not, that's all right, because opportunity is always what you sacrifice. No, that's how lamai you calculate marginal opportunity cost. Now, I'll explain the logic of that story. When you're going from A to B, you're increasing good T by 250. So to increase 250 good T, you have to sacrifice 250 good R. Marginal opportunity cost means to produce 1 unit of this, how much you are sacrificing. So for 250, you have to sacrifice 250 now, then for 1, you have to sacrifice 1. That's what you calculate. Now, we will do the same calculation here. Can you all tell me, when going from A to B, can you all calculate the marginal opportunity cost here? What is the foregone? Marginal means for 1 extra unit. Usually when you say opportunity cost, you're talking about totals. Marginal means for 1 extra unit. So can you all tell me this, Lara? When going from A to B, what are you foregoing? A to B, you're foregoing 1 mobile phone. So foregone 1. What are you gaining? You're gaining 10 cameras. Sorry, did this one screen go off? Sorry, give me a second. Hold on, my screen went off. Hold on. Second. Wait, my Zoom is updating. Give me a second. I don't know why this Zoom gets automatic updates. In my laptop now, I have off automatic updates because I have installed the older version of Zoom. So the fact that I've installed the older version of Zoom, I have cancelled automatic updates, because otherwise, if it automatically updates the new version, then the whole chat box goes for a second. That's what I have done. Give me 1 second, Lama. In my iPad, the Zoom is updating. This also has to update at this exact moment. I think it is done. I know. So I know why they update in the middle of a meeting. They should have the common sense to run updates at least when the app is not being used. Back to my thing. Behind me, no, these are not economic books. That's the bookstore my wife usually runs. So there are some books may be economic, some books could be mine, but it's mainly her bookstore that she runs. And there are books on that. Right. So back to my thing here, my A to B. Can you tell me how that works? So foregone is 1. What are you gaining? You're foregoing 1 mobile phone, but what are you gaining? You're gaining 10 cameras. So then what is your opportunity cost? Marginal opportunity cost. 1 divided by 10, you get a 0.1. 0.1 what? To get 10 cameras, you're sacrificing 1 phone. Then to get 1 camera, you have to sacrifice 0.1 mobile. That is how you calculate marginal opportunity cost. Just have that in mind. So then remember, Lamai, what is constant opportunity cost again? Constant opportunity cost is where when you increase the production of one good, the amount of the other good you sacrifice remains constant. As a result, what happens? Your PPC becomes, Lamai, a straight line. Right? You have a straight line PPC. PPC is a straight line. But what is increasing opportunity cost? Increasing opportunity cost is where when you produce more and more and more, the amount of the other good you sacrifice keeps rising. First, you have to sacrifice 1 phone, then you sacrifice 4 phones. That's what you call increasing opportunity cost. So in increasing opportunity cost, Lama, the equation is the same. Yes. In increasing opportunity cost, Lama, you'll have a concave PPC. Then what are the reasons for this? How come you have certain goods have constant opportunity cost and certain goods have increasing opportunity cost? Why? Now, if the resources between the 2 goods that you're producing are homogeneous, let's say, for example, something like bread and bun. Now, if you take something like bread and buns, the resources are almost similar. No? You need an oven, you need a tray, you need flour, you need a baker. Resources are almost similar. No? So if resources are similar, homogeneous, you can have constant opportunity cost. The second reason is if the resources efficient in one industry are the same for the other industry. Now, if you take a baker, lama, if you whether you put him to bake buns or to bake bread, he is equally efficient. No, he can get both of it done. Then also you'll have constant opportunity cost. And there could be another reason, lama. The final one is if the technology is similar between the two industries. Now, if you take bread and bun, the technology is similar, lama. The oven and all of that is very much similar there. That is what those are the reasons, Lamai, for constant opportunity cost. As a result, you will have a straight line PPC. What are the reasons for increasing opportunity cost? Now, they can say increasing opportunity. Sometimes Lamai, they might say law of increasing opportunity cost. Now, don't get scared. It's the same thing. So what are the reasons for this? One could be, Lamai, now I'll take, let's say, an example of bread and mobile phones. I remember in my example I gave, yes, guns and pancakes. So bread and mobile phones. Now, if you take bread and mobile phones, the resources are not the same, Nilamai. Bread hadanna, you have an oven. There is a baker. You have, flour. But how do you make mobile phones? Mobile phones you don't put in oven and make. You don't use it with flour. That's not how you produce it, no? Mobile phones are made in separate way. The resources are different, non-homogeneous. So if the resources are different, Lama, you can have increasing opportunity cost. And also, resources efficient in one industry are not efficient in the other. Now, take a person who is baking bread. He must be expert. He is working in a hotel, let's say in a bakery. He's baking bread. But you take the fellow and put him in the mobile phone industry. Does he know to make a mobile phone? Maybe let's say an engineer who is making mobile phones, you take the fellow and put him in the bread industry. Can he work? No. So resources efficient in one industry are not efficient in the other. And the technology used to produce the two goods are different. Practically think how you produce bread and how you produce mobile phones, the technology is completely different. No? So if these are the case, you will have increasing opportunity cost. Then your PPC will be concave. If this is the case, you will have a straight line PPC, constant opportunity. So those are the reasons very heavily tested, Lama, in your paper. These reasons and all, MCQs, they twist it around here and there and there and there, and they ask. What we give up and what we gain should be equal in constant. No. Now, in my example, it's 250, 250. There is no rule saying it has to be 250. It can be different numbers. But he said that the opportunity cost will be constant at each point. A to B, B to C will be the same. Is that okay, Laman? Opportunity cost and the shape of your PPC. The reasons for constant, reasons for increasing opportunity cost. Remember, there is something called decreasing opportunity cost that is not at all practical. Decreasing opportunity cost is where you have the more and more you produce, your opportunity cost reduces. You have a convex PPC like this. So this is concave. Huh? This is concave. So this is not practical. So we don't talk about that much in your syllabus. There are so many questions that happen. And also remember, guys, what I'm doing here is I'm giving you a summary. Huh? You all have learned this before. Please don't misunderstand this whole thing of this is sir teaching this for the first time. If you're listening to me for the first time right now, this would have been utter Greek, right? You're wondering this stuff. This is talking about PPC. He's talking drawing two lines and doing something. You're completely lost. I'm with the impression you have learned this somewhere. You know, like the basics. You might not be an expert. If you're an expert, you don't have to come to tuition classes. You kind of know PPC, you know, constant. Some idea is there. I am just refreshing your memory. That's all that I am doing. I'm not teaching this for the very first time. I remember very first time I would have taught this time, I would have taken 2 hours to explain this whole constant and increasing opportunity cost with the example. And I remember the whole story about pancakes and guns and this and that. And why does it work like this? We'll go on that. Now, revision, I can't do all of that because then I will finish the class tomorrow only. Okay. So now coming into, we'll leave those aside. We'll look at Lamai. How do you represent certain concepts on a PPC? Okay. How do you represent? So we'll start with something like scarcity. Now, PPC shows Lamai the maximum combination of two goods you can produce. Now, let's say capital and consumer goods. How do you show scarcity on a PPC? You all know this. We'll quickly recap. I want you all to give me answers. The lesser answers I get, then I realize that you don't know, then I will go and explain. So if you know it, please let me know. How do you show scarcity? PPC shows all the points that are attainable. Scarcity is a point outside the PPC. So any point outside the PPC, let's say I'll mark it as point A. Okay. Any point outside the PPC represents scarcity, saying that, look here, we don't have resources to produce that. It is unattainable. Then how do you show my alternative uses? Alternative uses could be any point. They won't even usually ask that in your exam. So for example, let's say this one. This is also the alternative use. You can produce, let's say, 10 capital goods, 100 consumer goods. You can, let's say, produce at this point. You can produce at a point inside. You can, let's say, even a point outside could be an alternative use. So if you, let's say, have point B, point C, point D, right? I'll erase this point, right? So you have A, B, C, D. So all of these, whether it's outside, inside, on the PPC, anything represents alternative uses. A, B, C, D. But how do you represent choice on a PPC now? Choice will be the attainable ones, but in case if they ask you, to explain choice on a PPC, I would recommend you don't go and just show a point instead give an explanation. So what I would say is, okay, a point inside could be alternative use now. That's not a problem. Right? If they say choice, you can explain that. For example, now here my point B, C, D. Any of this could be a choice. A can't be a choice because it is unattainable. But you need to explain. Just jotting a few points and saying this is choice kiyanna bෑ. So you have to say that look here, one option is the economy can produce 10 capital goods and 100 consumer goods. That is, if they decide to produce at point B, or else they can choose to produce at point C. Let's say at point C, you can produce 5 capital goods, and let's say you can produce 200 consumer goods. So that's a choice. C is also another one. D is also another one. So that is what you call choice. Now, also, when it comes to a PPC, we will do the paper next week. But always, when they ask you to draw a PPC, you have to give a small 1 to 2 line explanation. Don't forget. Now, if they ask you, show scarcity on a PPC, don't just draw the PPC like this and mark a point outside. You will not get the full mark. I'm repeating. Next week, when we are discussing the paper, please don't ask me, sir, should we give an explanation also? I'm telling you today, you have to. Whether they have asked you or not, remember, your goal is to impress the examiner. Who marks your paper 1 year later, doesn't know you. You might be a stupid fellow, smart fellow, girl, boy, Colombo school, post school, poor fellow. We don't care. Examiner only sees what you wrote. They have not asked, that's okay. You will not run out of time for econ. You show that you know your things, you're writing complete answers. That's what we are trying to do in the revision class now. So if they ask you, show scarcity on a PPC, show at a point outside and give a small 1 line explanation. You can say, PPC shows the maximum possible output a country can produce. Scarcity means it's a point that is unattainable. You don't have resources. Therefore, it will be at a point outside the PPC. In your words, explain, Lavan. Same thing. Whatever thing, you have to give a small 1 to 2 line explanation. Remember that. Choice, so it ideally has to be between B, C, and D. But actually, C is not a rational choice to make because that is unemployment. But you can actually choose to produce at C also. If you want, you can produce, let's say, 6 units of capital goods and let's say 50 units of consumer goods. You can do that. But it's not the ideal thing because you have unemployed resources there. That's how you show scarcity, alternative uses, and choice. So I'll leave that there. Then we'll go into how do you show opportunity cost on a PPC? So we discussed this a little, but I will go a little bit more in detail. Okay. Now, I want all of you all to give me answers quickly. Here. This opportunity cost, they can ask you in multiple ways. Listen carefully. This is tested in your revision paper 4 as well. Productive, that is next part. Okay. So let's say there is capital goods. There are okay, I'll give different name. The capital consumer is boring. So we'll take clothes and mobile phones. Okay. Let's say, listen carefully, don't daydream. Let's say, Lamai, if a economy is using all of its resources, choice I'll come back, all of its resources, let's say it can produce 1,000 clothes. Or it can, let's say, produce 200 mobile phones. Then you have a few points in the middle as well. Point A, point B. Let's say at point A, you're producing 900 clothes and let's say 100 mobile phones. And then you have point B, where you're producing 500 clothes and let's say 180 mobile phones. Now, this is the diagram that I'm giving. Based on a diagram like this, Lama, they can ask you multiple questions. First of all, I will write down the questions and then we'll go to the answers. One thing they can ask you is, okay, listen carefully. I'll write it all over. What is the opportunity cost of moving from point A to B? That is one question. B to A. That is one question they can ask. Another question they can ask you is, what the answers for all of this will be different. Huh? What is the opportunity cost of producing 900 clothes? Another one they can say is, same thing, I'll turn it around. What is the opportunity cost of producing, let's say, 100 mobile phones? They can ask it like that. Another way they can ask you this question is they can ask you, what is the marginal opportunity cost? What is the marginal opportunity cost when moving from, one could be A to B, other one could be B to A. Okay. So different questions, Lamai, can be asked around this. Which one they will ask you in your paper? I don't know. I don't set your paper, Lamai. So different questions, the answer is different. We'll start with the first one that I wrote. What is the opportunity cost when moving from point A to point B? That I taught you all before, Lamai. Think at point A, you're producing 900 clothes, 100 phones. When going from A to B, right? Now you're producing 500 clothes, 180 phones. So to get 180 phones, what did you sacrifice? That is the answer for the first one. What did you sacrifice? To get 180 phones, you had to sacrifice 400 clothes. So the answer for the first one is Lamai, 400 units of clothes. Opportunity cost of moving from A to B. What is the opportunity cost of moving from B to A? Let's say you were initially at point B. Now you went from B to A. What are you sacrificing now? You're going this way now. Now what are you sacrificing? At point B, you were producing 500 clothes, 180 phones. Now when you go to A, you're producing 100 phones. You're giving up 100 phones. Not giving up 100. You're going to 100 phones, getting 400 clothes. What are you giving up? That's your opportunity cost here. You're giving up 80 phones. That is your opportunity cost. So here the answer would be 80 mobile phones. Right. That's how you answer the first one. Done. Now, another way they can ask you this question is, Lamai, they can ask you, what is the opportunity cost of producing 900 clothes? Now, this is where some of you all go wrong. Listen carefully. Okay. Lamai, when you're producing 900 clothes, how much of phones can you produce? How much of phones can you produce? You can produce 100, right? Now, opportunity cost is what you can't produce. No? So because you're producing 900 clothes, how much of phones can't you produce? This gap there, that is the opportunity cost limit. That is the opportunity cost answer. How much of phones can't you produce? You can't produce another 100, because if you are not producing any clothes, you can produce 200 phones, right? If you're not producing any clothes, always remember, if they ask you opportunity cost of clothes, you can't say 100 clothes. Opportunity cost of producing clothes has to be the other good level always. So opportunity cost of producing 900 clothes is 100 mobile phones, what you can't produce. So here the answer would be 100 mobile phones. Now, what if I ask you now the same thing before I get to the next question that I have wrote? What is the opportunity cost of producing 500 clothes, Lamai? Can you give me an answer? What is the opportunity cost of? It's not 80. No, 80 is when moving from B to A. What is the opportunity cost of producing 500 clothes? Because you're producing 500 clothes, how much of phones can you produce? 108. How much of phones can't you produce? That is opportunity cost. If the question says, they are not saying going from A to B, they are just asking you, what is the opportunity cost of producing 500 clothes? So when producing 500 clothes, you can produce 180 phones. How much of phones can't you produce? That is the opportunity cost. You can't produce this small one. Then the answer would be 20 mobile phones. Got it? That has to be your learn how to read. Can you give me the answer for the next one? My next question is saying, what is the opportunity cost of producing 100 mobile phones? Because I am producing 100 mobile phones, I can produce 900 clothes. How much of clothes can't I produce? What you can't produce is only opportunity cost now. So the answer there would be then 100 clothes. Now, what if I ask you, what is the opportunity cost of producing 180 mobile phones? 180 mobile phones. When you're producing 180 mobile phones, how much of clothes can't you produce? This entire thing you can't produce. Then it would be a 500 clothes. So for those who are learning this for the first time, product takes some time to go through that level. That's another way they can ask you the question. First way is moving from one point to another point. Second way is not moving. At a specific point, they're asking you that. The third type of question they can ask you is the marginal opportunity cost. Or in other words, they can say opportunity cost of producing one extra unit. So here you have to use the equation. That is where you use the equation. When they say marginal opportunity cost or opportunity cost of producing one extra unit, then the equation comes. What is the equation? The one that we learned before. What is that? Marginal opportunity cost, foregone number of units divided by gained number of units. So can you all tell me, when going from A to B, right, what are you foregoing? You're foregoing clothes. How much of clothes? Foregone 400 clothes. What are you gaining? A to B, you're gaining 80 phones. So 400 divided by 80. How much do you get? You get 5. 5 monad. Opportunity cost is always what you sacrifice. 400 divided by 80 is 5. 5 out. 5. 5. What are you sacrificing when going from A to B? What are you giving up? You're giving up clothes. So 5 clothes. That is the marginal opportunity cost. Now go the other way, B to A. When going from B to A, what are you sacrificing? When going from B to A, lama, you are sacrificing phones. You are sacrificing 80 phones. What are you gaining? You're gaining 400 clothes. So now it's the other way. 480 divided by 4. How much do you all get here? 0.2. 0.2 mobile. So those are the different variations that you all can get, Lamai, in terms of your thing. Now you have to figure this out, Lamai, you have to do questions, I think. That's why I have given you all so much of papers. So when you all are doing the papers, then you will see, this is this type of question. This is this type of question. Just listening to me and looking at the screen won't help. I will share the slides. These are the annual theory tools also, right? But do the questions. When you're doing the questions, you will when make the sir told. This is what he said. Then you will understand the story there, right? So in your exam, Lama, if they ask you to show opportunity cost on a PPC, what I will recommend is draw a diagram like this, mark 2 points A to B. You can say when moving from A to B, this is the opportunity cost. When going from B to B, B to A, this is the opportunity cost. Only you can explain it that way. Done. Okay. Then we come into this economic efficiency. And so I have half an hour more. Let me quickly run through this. What is economic efficiency? How do we show this on a PPC? Then under this, you have something called productive and allocative efficiency. Lamai, economic efficiency is where we use all our resources in the maximum sustainable way, in an optimal way, and we produce what the society wants. There are two parts there. See, economic efficiency, I'm saying you use, right, full use of all resources, right? You use all your resources sustainably and not exploiting, and you produce the goods, right? Produce the goods that the society wants. If you have done that, you have achieved economic efficiency. So economic efficiency is where, here's I'm formally defining, I'm saying, is a situation where the economy produces the most desired goods and services required by the society. That is the second point I said. At the optimal level. Optimal level means you use all your resources fully, no wastage, no unemployment, nothing. So if you have both of this, Lamai, you say there is another economic efficiency. You're using all your resources properly, fully, and producing what the society wants. That's economic efficiency. Necessary to write a description. Always, Lamai, better to give a description. Okay. Now, in order to achieve this economic efficiency, you have to meet two conditions. The first condition is, Lamai, productive efficiency. With the definition itself, you can get. Now, I told you, Lamai, economic efficiency is about one, using all your resources. Using all your resources. No, it's not any point. I'll come to the PPC. Give me a second. Right? Using all your resources fully. So that is what my production efficiency or productive efficiency means. Now, productive efficiency means, now, two conditions. What are the two conditions in order to achieve economic efficiency? First thing is, you have to achieve productive efficiency. What is productive efficiency? Productive efficiency is where from all your resources, your land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, you get the maximum sustainable output from it. From all your resources, you're making the full use of it. You're not exploiting labor on 8 hours. You don't tell the fellow work for 24 hours. You get the maximum sustainable output from all your resources. If you do that, Lama, you also will be producing at the lowest average cost, or you can say lowest unit cost. If you do this, you're not wasting any resource and all of it. You're fully using your resources. To achieve productive efficiency, to get the maximum output from all your resources, first thing you have to do is you have to have full employment. You have to employ all the resources. Let's say there are 100 people in the country. All 100 people should have jobs. They have to be employed. Second, there has to be full production. Now, let's say, there are 100 people in a country. All 100 people have jobs, full employment, but they are only working for 3 hours a day. They're working for 3 hours a day, and it's 5 hours. They're having lunch, they're walking around, gossiping. That's what they're doing. Do we have full production? Full employment? Yes. 100 people in the country, all people have jobs. Full employment. But do we have full production? Full production is where all your employed resources have to be used to its maximum sustainable level. So if, let's say, labor sustainable level is, let's say, around 8 hours a day. So if your labor is working 8 hours a day, and then it's full production. So if you have got full employment, that means if you have utilized all your resources, your labor, land, everything is employed, plus they are working in the sustainable level. Labor is working for 8 hours. If a machine can run for 15 hours, then it's working for 15 hours. If these two sub-conditions are met, then you can achieve productive efficiency or production efficiency. What is production or productive efficiency? Production or productive efficiency is where you get the maximum sustainable output from your resources. Or in other words, another way of defining it, you produce at the lowest average cost. Because if you get the maximum sustainable output, you will automatically be producing at the lowest average cost that is there. But is that alone enough to achieve economic efficiency? Just because you get all your resources and produce at the maximum, get the maximum sustainable output, is that alone enough for you to achieve economic efficiency? Economic efficiency is not about just using all your resources fully. I told you, you have to use it fully. Fine. That is productive efficiency. You should also produce what the society wants. No. Now, what if I am using all my resources, full employment, full production, I am producing, let's say guns. Does the Sri Lankan economy right now need guns? We don't need guns now. We are not in a war. We don't need guns. We might need something else. So just because you have productive efficiency, you can't have allocative efficiency, economic efficiency. And one more thing. So how do you represent productive efficiency on a PPC? If you have achieved productive efficiency, if you have used all your resources fully, right? Full employment, full production, where will you be? Any point on the PPC. Remember that. Any point on the PPC, will represent productive efficiency. So point A, B, and C. Any point on the PPC is productive efficiency. You're productively efficient. I'll come to allocative efficiency. Give me a second. But I told you, to achieve economic efficiency, only productive efficiency. Madine. Just being productively efficient, just making sure that you're using all your reasons, not enough. You have to do what? You have to You have to produce what the society wants. Right? It's from the definition, you can break it down. You have to produce what the society wants. And that is what you call allocative efficiency. You have to allocate your resources, not for any nonsense. Allocate your resources based on society's preference, based on what the people want. And the produce karan. Don't go and produce unwanted stuff. That's why I'm saying here refers to the distribution of resources of an economy based on society's preference. Now, what's the condition here? There is a small correction to make here. I would have corrected this. It's not marginal revenue. It has to be marginal benefit. Please correct that. MC equals MB. The condition for this is the marginal cost should equal to marginal benefit. Or in other words, the marginal cost should equal to price. That's the condition for allocative efficiency. I'm not going into detail of what is this marginal benefit, marginal cost, and all of it, because we don't have that much of time. And it's not very important to know these in detail one by one. Remember, the condition is marginal cost should equal to marginal benefit. Or in other words, marginal cost should equal to price. You can substitute marginal benefit and price. So if I'm to show that to you on I have given a small note here to show that to you on a PPC. Okay? So if you take two goods, let's say there is in our thing, one we had bread. So for bread, you have the marginal benefit curve. This is the marginal benefit curve. That's the demand curve. And then you have the marginal cost curve. Think of that as the supply curve. Right? The marginal benefit is what you can replace with price. So the condition for allocative efficiency will be marginal benefit, or in other words, the price should equal to marginal cost. That's the condition. Okay. So then, based on this, right, for bread, we have to be ideally producing, let's say, 100 units of bread. That's the allocatively efficient level of output for bread. Then if you take the other good, let's say other good is clothes. So for clothes also, here you have the marginal benefit curve. You have the marginal cost curve. Clothes වලට marginal benefit and marginal cost. So based on that, where is this equal? You can draw the line and you can see, so let's say for something like clothes, you need 50 clothes. That's the allocatively efficient level of output for clothes. So the allocatively efficient level for bread is 100, for clothes is 50. So that combination, that point B, that is your allocatively efficient point. So here only you will have allocative efficiency. You're producing what the society wants. You're producing the ideal level of bread and the ideal level of clothes, what the society wants. Now, point A is productively efficient. But at point A, you're producing more bread, less food. But society wants more bread and less clothes. Society wants clothes also. In point C, you're producing more clothes, less bread. But you're not allocating your resources properly. You have full employment, but no allocative efficiency. So where the point where you have my productive efficiency and allocative efficiency, that point becomes economic efficient. So which point in my diagram here is economically efficient? A, B, or C? Where do you have both productive and allocative efficiency? Is point B. So point B is the point that is allocatively efficient. So if you're drawing a diagram, you have to draw all three of this properly. Remember, this is the PPC. Yeah, only this one is the PPC. The diagram on the left and the diagram on the bottom, those are not PPCs. Those are marginal benefit, marginal cost curve diagram. So this is the axis is quantity. This is the marginal benefit / marginal cost axis. Okay. So B is the point which you have economic efficiency. When one product is measured, doesn't the other point automatically get generated? Not really, right? So I'm drawing it this way, but yeah, theoretically, I think your point also makes sense. It's just that you figure it out like that. Now, for example, if you produce, let's say this point, let's say point D. So at point D, you're allocatively efficient for bread. You're producing 100 bread, but you're producing only, let's say 20 clothes. You're allocatively efficient for bread. You're producing the ideal amount of bread, but not producing the ideal amount of clothes. That can also happen. But we'll not go into that level, but just have that there. Okay, so that's the basic story of economic efficiency, the conditions, productive and allocative. Very highly tested area in your paper. So please go through that line, do the past papers. While doing the past papers, you can watch the recordings also. I'll send the link as well. You can watch the recording and do the past papers and then do the paper. There will be questions. There are enough and more things. How does marginal cost equals price? That is the condition line. So marginal cost equals marginal benefit is the condition. So instead of marginal benefit, you can replace marginal benefit with price. Therefore, you can give the condition as marginal cost equals marginal benefit. Demand and supply, same thing. Exactly. This marginal cost curve represents the supply curve. Marginal benefit represents the demand curve. Remember, in unit number 3, do you all remember the dead weight loss story that we learned in unit 3? This marginal benefit, marginal cost is supply curve, benefit is the demand curve. This is your allocatively efficient level of output. The equilibrium level of output is your allocatively efficient level of output. Remember that unit 3 connection. Then when there is a tax or a subsidy or something, what happens? You either end up overproducing or underproducing. You have to produce, let's say this is the ideal level, but you end up producing more or less. So that's the whole story. That is what you connect to unit number 3. So at unit 3, we'll go into that part there. But I hope the basic there is okay. Done. So then coming into the last parts of this lemon, a few macroeconomic concepts on a PPC. I only have 4 more slides. So a few macroeconomic concepts on a PPC. You quickly give me answers. I will finish the class soon. How do you show my full employment on a PPC? If you use all your resources fully, how do you show that on a PPC? Any point on the PPC. So any point on the PPC will be full employment. So full employment, point A. How do you show my unemployment on a PPC? Unemployment or even underemployment, a point inside the PPC. Maybe if they say increase in unemployment, you can draw arrow and show, but if they just say unemployment, you can draw a point inside the PPC. Unemployment. Okay, that is that. Then how do you show my things like a recession and a depression? What is a recession? Now, when there was COVID, the economy went through a recession. What is a recession? A recession is a time period where the increase unemployment, just draw arrow like this. Draw arrow. A recession is a time period where the aggregate demand comes down. Aggregate demand means the total demand. We learned that in unit number 6. Right? Total demand for goods come down. So when the total demand for goods come down, what will happen to firms' production? Will they produce the same amount? Now during COVID, no one was buying clothes. No one is buying shoes. So will the firms produce the same amount of clothes and shoes that they produced before? No, they will also reduce. No. So then production will come down. So when production comes down, now do you need the same amount of resources as before? Do you need the same amount of labor? Now earlier you were producing, let's say 10,000 clothes. So you were hiring 1,000 people. Now you're producing only, let's say 500 clothes. Do you need 1,000 people to make 500 clothes? Now what do you do? You fire people. No, for people you tell, look here, now we don't have demand. We are not producing. So you don't have the job. Do you need all your machines as you needed before? Now your machines that you had, you were just leaving it idle. So what happens is when production reduces, unemployment increases. And that is why certain people lost jobs during COVID. It's not because they had bad performance. It's that the company didn't have demand for their goods. So they reduce production. If they reduce production, they don't need the same amount of people as before. Okay. Then how do you show this on a PPC? The end result of a recession is unemployment increasing. How do you show? You can show it with a point moving inside. That's how you can show a recession. Then what is a depression? It's these slides I'll share in case you could take a screenshot. I'll share the slide. Don't worry in the group. What's a depression? A depression is where this recession goes for a long period. Now, for let's say for around 2 quarters, like more than 2 quarters, recession continues. Now, what will happen? Think of a machine that you have just closed and kept now. Sewing machine, you just closed and kept. Now, after 6 months, you're going to use that machine. Do you think the machine would work now? Think of even a computer that you all would have had at home. Before you would have bought a laptop, you all would have had a physical computer desktop. If you all had, think. Sometimes from that you move to a laptop, you just close the computer and kept. Now 6 months later, you try to on that computer, is not working. What happens now? Your resources that were unemployed will start getting destroyed. So resources will start to get destroyed. So then your labor, your capital will reduce. That is why you shift the PPC because your resource endowment is coming down. That's what happens in a depression. It's a prolonged recession. Now even think of me. Let's say right now I work as a economist. One challenging thing about the job is you have to be updated about what is happening. So I have to spend a lot of time reading the news, right? Knowing what is out there because we can get different questions from clients. Sometimes if you go to a presentation to meet a client, he might ask you random things out of nowhere. Something he would have seen in a news. So for me to answer that question, I should know that. So you have to stay updated. For example, what happened yesterday in the exchange rate market? Yesterday, what happened in the treasury bill auction? And what happened, let's say, okay, now something has happened in Trump and this one is done. What happened there yesterday? Now I can't go to a client presentation and say, look here, no, I don't know. No, yesterday I was not updated. Now, so it's not easy, right? It's a lot of things that you'll have to do. But it's a very interesting thing as well. That's why I keep doing it. But now just think, okay, just think. For 6 months, I lose my job. Now for 6 months, I lose my job. I am not doing any of that, right? I am just doing my classes, chill. Okay, I am, playing video games at home. I nicely wait. Do you think, Lama, 6 months later, if I go back to my job, I might have that same skill now? 6 months later, Mama chill එකේ ගිහිල්ලා now I am a client asked me what happened me last week. What is this? I have no idea what happened. See, that is what happens now. When your resources are unemployed, those resources get destroyed. Not that I am dying, it's that my skill now is no longer there. So if you work as an economist now, you have to be very updated about what is happening. You take a break for a year and come back, you might no longer be relevant there. Now just think of someone who took a break last year, someone who would have taken a break last year, and now let's say he's coming next year. He has no idea what happened with these Trump's tariffs and what is this Iran war that is happening there. They might have no idea what is out. How is that affecting? No. So that's the point that I'm trying to make. Now, in a recession, what happens is your resources get unemployed. So you draw arrow and show, look here, point moving inside. But if these resources are unemployed for a long time, for at least, let's say, 2 or more quarters, the resources will get destroyed. Your labor might not have the skill anymore. Right? I can't go back 6 months later and act as the same way as an economist that I did today. Right? The machines that you were using 6 months later will not be used now. That is why, Lamai, you shift the PPC. Yes, 1 week alone it'll be hard level. That's usual things. So usually what we do is I every day allocate around an hour to for you all. We will come there right now, especially in your syllabus, Lama, unit number 7 onwards. Unit number 7 onwards is where these current things come now, right? Now, Lama, this is microecon, what you all have doing. So in my work, Lama, we don't talk about PPC and economic goods, economic reason, nothing like that. That's why I can't bring in any examples. So when we get into unit number 7 onwards, right? 7 onwards, interest rates, money supply, how is the inflation working, all of that. So there, I will regularly connect it with my day-to-day work that I do. It becomes very interesting then. Unit number 7 is the 7 onwards is the grade 13 syllabus. Those units are a little hard, but those units I would say, Lamai, are very practical and interesting. Especially now, given that I work with this, I'll give you the real world examples and all of that. So it becomes very interesting there, Lamai, because you will understand why did this economic crisis happen? Why are the prices going? Now, why is the exchange rate going like this? And what is happening with our imports, exports, all of that? You will logically learn that it's a little difficult. It's not as now in unit number 1, you have distinguish between economic resources, economic goods, what is a free good, right? PPC show those basic theory ones. There it gets much more practical, very interesting. We'll come to that. That's unit 7 onwards, grade 13 syllabus. So far, we are in unit number 5. Unit number 5 is what we are starting in July. We'll come to 7 very soon. Right. So depression, yes, is a shift in your PPC. Fine, precision depression. Then, my current consumption and economic growth. That's again something that I want you all to know. Now, broadly, a country can produce 2 types of goods. Can you tell me what are the 2 types of goods a country can produce? Overall, broadly, what and what can you produce? You can produce consumer goods, right? That is, what are consumer goods, Lamai? Consumer goods can your day-to-day goods for consumption. Clothes, food, right? Those stuff. What are the other type of goods? Capital goods. What are capital goods? Capital goods are the goods, Lamai, that you produce to produce other goods. For example, machines. For example, Lamai, let's say buildings, factories. Those are capital goods. Examples where we can classify as that they will direct tell you, Lamai. They will not give an example like that. Okay. So then you have consumer and capital. So let's say, Lamai, there are 2 countries. Right? So we have, let's say, country A and country B. So let's say, Lamai, country A is producing a lot of consumer goods, very little capital goods. They are producing here. Country B is doing the opposite. They are producing a lot of capital goods, very little consumer goods. Based on this, Lamai, can you all tell me current living standard? Who has high current living standard? Living standard, Lamai, is usually based on your consumer good, how much of choice you have, and all of that. Who has a high level of current living standard? Current living standard, Lamai, is better at country A. So here it is high because they have a lot of consumer goods, so much of choice, so much of variety, all of that is there. But country B my consumer goods වැඩි නැහැ. Current living standard is low. But what can you tell about Lamai? The future growth potential. In the future, which economy do you think will grow more? A or B? Who has more potential to grow more in the future? That is country B. Future growth will be high. Here, future growth will be low, Lamai. You know why? Because economy now, see, economy B, PPC will shift a lot, Lamai, in the future. This part is tested, right? And economy A, it is not, it is shifting, but shifting a little. Why? Because if you looked at economy B, they sacrificed their current consumption. Right? They had low living standards right now. They sacrificed their consumer goods. They produced more capital goods. They produced more and more machines, more buildings, more factories. Right? 5 years later, all those machines, buildings, factories, and all that they produce can now produce more goods. So in your future, economy grows a lot. But if you looked at country A, right now they are producing very little capital goods, more consumer goods. So since they are producing a little capital goods, they will grow only a little. That's the decision Lamai a country has to make between current consumption and economic growth. If you have very high levels of current consumption and don't produce capital goods, then your growth will be low. But if you sacrifice your current consumption, have a lot of capital goods, you will grow a lot. That's the same story that you have for life as well. No? So economy A is like a fellow who is right now having some fun, chill waiting, not doing anything, chill is out there. Future growth will be less. Now think of this revision class below. Now, how many people are there in the class? How many people are there in the group? At the start of this, there was close to around 170. Now there is no 170 also here. Group, there is around 400 fellows. The fellows who are not in the class is the A. They want to right now have some chill. They want to, they are a little hungry now. So they have left the meeting and gone. They want to eat on time. So that is A, right? So those are the A's, right? Hit up the Sapper guys. Who are the B fellows? B fellows are you all. No matter how hard it is. Now I know you all also have gone to school, Lama. You also would have had another class, but you're here no, in front of me. Not that I'm the most interesting fellow. No. I'm also sitting here. I'm also tired. You're also tired, but we are still somehow learning. No. You're sacrificing your current consumption, right? You're sacrificing all your fun food that you can have now, your TV time, your sleep. You're sacrificing everything, and you're learning under for your future to get much better. That's you. A is the fellows who might sometimes they might be watching the recording later on. They may that fellow. There may be fellows who might even not even watch this recording. They will not even realize that they are the part A of this. That's the story there. Current consumption, yes, you can say inversely proportional to growth. Not that the growth will decrease, it will grow less. So you don't say inversely proportional itself. Okay, right. Okay, last slide. 16, I have 2 minutes more. Explain how the following situations will be illustrated on a PPC. There is only one PPC line because the answer for all of this is the same. I want you all to think of the opposite. Can you all tell me what will happen to your PPC? If you discover new resources, if you obtain ownership for resources, if you get more inflows from foreign countries, if your resource stock and technology improves, if you get more and more foreign loans, if your tech and techniques improve, all of it, what happens? So these are all, remember that thing now, I told you determinants changing. So here, most of the determinants are increasing, no? So this is a rightward shift. PPC will shift right. So same way or outside, rightward shift, or you can say outward shift. The opposite happens now. People leave the country. You have outdated technology. Natural disasters happen. Capital gets destroyed. Let's say something like COVID comes and people die. Right? You're using, let's say, your people don't have the skills. So all of that, then will shift your PPC inside. And import ban will shift the PPC inside. So these are shifting it out. They're shifting it. The point that I'm trying to make here is not to memorize these situations. In the paper, we will do some situations. When you do the papers also, you will come across. It's not about memorizing the situations, all the other random situations, you have to think of that determinants part that I taught you. Think of the think of the factor endowment and the factor productive. And that's how you get that done. Right. So with that, I will end the PPC part. That is the recap of PPC. So next Wednesday, what and what do you need to do? So ideally, if you have completed all the work so far, you will have revision paper number 4. This is the one that I will mark and give. Deadline next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Can someone tell me the date? Today is the first, no? So that will be 8th July, 6 p.m. revision paper number 4. Definitely you have to submit. Apart from this, I'll put a poll on the group as well. What else do you have to do? You have to get done. You have to do the past paper focus area. So past paper focus area 4. I'll send you have the tute. I'll send the YouTube recordings of those as well. While doing, if you get stuck, watch the YouTube recording. And take home paper, you only have one left, right? Take home paper, you were supposed to do 2. So you have take home paper 3 that is left. So these 3 papers, take home paper 3 lamai won't take time. Take home paper 3 will take 1 hour. This paper will take 2 hours. Past paper focus area 3 might take around 3 hours for you to get done, but there are same questions repeated over and over and over again. Past papers, I don't have the typed answers for everything because that's the same thing in the past paper book. I'll share the past paper marking scheme answers also. If possible, I'll try to type and get it for you as well. Okay. So get that done. That's around 6 hours of work. 6 hours of work, roughly around 1 hour a day, you have to be allocating right now for you to study. So apart from this, you can ideally take around 2 hours to study this PPC area and 1 hour to make the short note. So ideally, around 9 hours of work you're allocating for this entire PPC area to get that done. So if I am to give you a priority, first study, then make the short note, then do the past paper, then do the take-home paper. And then once all of this is done, by around Monday or something, do the revision paper. But revision paper is the one you definitely have to submit. Do all of this and do the revision paper now, and then revision paper, your marks will be high. Now, without studying, without doing anything, nikang revision paper karama lama, you will feel it hard. So do all of this. Last thing you do would be the revision paper. So if you finish this soon, finish the revision paper very, very soon. There will not be a unit exam lama at the end because all of these are exams that we are doing. There's 11 papers there. I don't think there's another paper that we need. The fast track and all later on, there are enough and more papers, again, unit-based ones that will come. There is no specific unit-based exam here. So next week, we will discuss revision paper 4. We'll go through any difficult questions in the past papers, in the take-home papers, and we'll have a quiz. So let's have a bit of a longer quiz. Instead of 10 questions, I'll try to make more questions, try to have a longer quiz, and we'll see how it goes. Okay? Right, done. So that's all that we have. I'll add the recording to YouTube very soon. I'll send you this ones as well. See you. Bye-bye.